The neutral space station was called Unity, built centuries ago by species hoping to create a place where different civilizations could meet without fear. It had been abandoned for decades, but now it served as the location for the most important negotiation in galactic history. Representatives from 40 different species gathered to witness the impossible. The Viridian Dominion was surrendering. Ambassador Jiwoo arrived on a human warship, flanked by Admiral Taemin and a security detail. She wore formal diplomatic attire, but there was nothing soft about her expression. She had seen the casualty reports. Humanity had lost over 300 ships and nearly 1 million people. Every death weighed on her as she prepared to face the species that had caused such suffering. Commander Thralix was already waiting in the negotiation chamber. The proud Viridian looked diminished somehow, as if the weight of defeat had physically shrunk her. Around her stood representatives of the Viridian High Council, their scales dull with exhaustion and shame. An elderly human diplomat named Juan opened the proceedings. He was 90 years old and had been brought out of retirement specifically for this moment. His voice was soft but carried through the chamber with authority. We are here to discuss terms of peace between humanity and the Viridian Dominion. Let us begin with the facts. The Dominion invaded human space without provocation. They were warned. They ignored that warning. They have paid a terrible price for their arrogance. Thralix raised her head, some of her old pride returning. We underestimated you. It is a mistake we will not make again. But understand this, humans. The Dominion still controls 200 star systems. We have billions of soldiers. If this war continues, we may lose, but we will take you with us. Admiral Taemin leaned forward. Is that a threat? It is a fact. Both our species have the power to destroy the other. The question is whether we choose mutual destruction or find another path. Jiwoo studied the Viridian commander. She saw exhaustion and fear, but also a glimmer of hope. Thralix did not want to keep fighting. She wanted a way out that did not destroy her people. Here are humanity's terms, Jiwoo said. First, complete withdrawal of all Viridian forces from human territory. Second, reparations for the damage caused to our colonies. Third, release of all enslaved species within the Dominion. And fourth, reduction of Viridian military forces to defensive levels only. The chamber erupted in gasps. The other species present could not believe what they were hearing. Humanity was demanding the Viridians free their slaves. They were demanding the Dominion disarm. These were not the terms of a peace treaty. These were the terms of total surrender. Thralix stood up, her body trembling with rage. You ask us to destroy ourselves. Without our military, we are defenseless. Without our slave labor, our economy collapses. You demand the end of the Viridian Dominion. Jiwoo stood as well, meeting the alien's gaze without fear. You came to destroy us. You threatened our children. You would have enslaved our entire species. And now you complain that we ask too much? You should be grateful we are offering peace at all. My people wanted to push into your territory and burn your worlds. I convinced them to give you this chance. Elder Juan raised a hand and both women sat down. Let us take a recess. Emotions are high. We will resume in 1 hour. During the break, Jiwoo met with Admiral Taemin in a private room. The Admiral looked troubled. Are you sure about the terms? The military is ready to continue the offensive. We could occupy several Viridian systems before they regroup. Jiwoo shook her head. And then what? We become conquerors ourselves? We prove that humanity is no different from the Viridians? No. We win this war by showing there is another way. Captain Daesung entered the room, his expression grim. Ambassador, you should see this. He activated a holographic display showing data his intelligence teams had gathered from captured Viridian computers. It showed the reason the Viridians had become so aggressive. They were fleeing. Deep in unexplored space, something was coming. The data was incomplete, but it showed signs of a massive force that had destroyed several Viridian colonies on their outer borders. The Dominion had been expanding not out of pure greed, but out of fear. They needed resources and territory to prepare for a threat they did not fully understand. Jiwoo studied the data. They were running. They needed our space because something is hunting them. Taemin's expression hardened. Then we have a bigger problem. If something could scare the Viridians into desperate expansion, what chance do we have against it? A better chance if we are not fighting each other. When negotiations resumed, Jiwoo changed her approach. She shared the data about the unknown threat with everyone in the chamber, including the Viridians. Thralix looked shocked that the humans had discovered their secret. This is why you pushed into our space, Jiwoo said. You were not just conquering. You were preparing for something worse. Why did you not tell us? Thralix lowered her head. Would you have believed us? Would you have joined with us willingly? We have enslaved species for centuries. We are not trusted. No, you are not. But consider this. Humanity just defeated the Viridian Dominion. We have technology you cannot match. We have warriors who refuse to surrender. Instead of being enemies, what if we became allies? What if humanity helped you prepare for this threat and in return, you freed the species you have enslaved? The chamber fell silent. The representatives of enslaved species looked at each other with hope and disbelief. Could it be possible? Could humanity really force the Viridians to free them? The Viridian High Council members conferred in their own language. Finally, the eldest among them spoke. What you propose is unprecedented. The Dominion has existed for 3,000 years. You ask us to change everything about who we are. Jiwoo smiled. Yes, that's exactly what I am asking. Change or face extinction? Those are your options. General Mi-sun, who commanded the human forces occupying captured Viridian territory, sent a message to Jiwoo. Her troops had discovered that many of the enslaved species wanted revenge. If the Viridians were released from human control, there would be uprisings. Blood would flow. Jiwoo addressed this concern directly. The species you enslaved want justice. Humanity understands this. We propose the creation of a galactic council where all free species have a voice. The Viridians will face judgment for their crimes, but through law, not through mob violence. And humanity will guarantee the safety of all parties during this transition. It was a bold proposal. Humanity, the youngest species in the galaxy, was proposing to become the guardian of galactic peace. Some might call it arrogant. Others might call it naive. But standing in that chamber, with the proof of their military power and the sincerity of their intentions, it was hard to argue with them. Dr. Hyejen arrived at the station with disturbing news about the stellar resonance weapon. The subspace damage was worse than she had feared. Space itself was healing slowly, but there were tears in reality that might become permanent. If they used the weapon again, they could cause irreparable harm to the fabric of the universe. Taemin listened to her report and made a decision. Then we destroy it. We will not risk damaging existence itself even to win a war. When Jiwoo learned of this, she shared the information with the Viridians. We have the power to destroy you completely, but we choose not to. We are eliminating our most powerful weapon because using it would harm the galaxy. This is what humanity offers. Strength tempered with wisdom. Power used responsibly. The negotiations lasted for 3 days. In the end, the Viridians agreed to most of humanity's terms. They would withdraw from human space. They would free the enslaved species over a period of 5 years, with humanity overseeing the transition. They would reduce their military and join a mutual defense pact against the unknown threat. In return, humanity would share some of their technology and help the Viridians prepare for what was coming. The 47 enslaved species would gain their freedom and become part of a new galactic federation with humanity and the reformed Viridian state as founding members. When the treaty was signed, Thralix approached Jiwoo privately. I underestimated your species. I thought you were weak because you had not been tested by galactic war. I was wrong. You are the most dangerous species I have ever encountered. Jiwoo raised an eyebrow. Dangerous? You fight with the desperation of a species facing extinction, but you show mercy when you have won. You are unpredictable. You change the rules. You refuse to accept that anything is impossible. Yes, you are dangerous, but perhaps you are also what the galaxy needs. 3 years later, Earth had become the capital of the Galactic Federation. The freed species built embassies and established trade. The Viridians, now led by younger commanders who had not been raised in the culture of conquest, worked alongside human scientists to prepare for the coming threat. Lieutenant Jin Ho, now a general, oversaw the reconstruction of New Busan. The city had been heavily damaged in the fighting, but the colonists rebuilt with determination. A memorial stood in the central square, listing the names of all who had died defending their home. Private Min Seok's name was at the top, honored as a hero. Pilot Yu Jin ran a training program, teaching pilots from a dozen different species how to use the AI combat network. The war entered its 4th week and the galaxy was watching. News of humanity's resistance had spread to every corner of known space. The species enslaved by the Viridian Dominion watched with hope they had not felt in centuries. The other major powers watched with concern, wondering what would happen if this young species actually won. Commander Thralix had retreated to a secondary command ship and was receiving reports that made her blood run cold. The human counterattack had destroyed another 300 Viridian vessels. Their forces were now split and struggling to maintain supply lines. Worst of all, the humans showed no signs of slowing down. She sent urgent messages to the Viridian High Council, requesting reinforcements. The Council's response was swift and harsh. They were sending an additional 2,000 ships, but they also sent a message. If Thralix failed to defeat these humans, she would be executed for incompetence. The Dominion could not afford to show weakness. The reinforcements would take 2 weeks to arrive. Until then, Thralix had to hold her position and prevent the humans from driving her forces out completely. She ordered her commanders to dig in and defend their captured territory. It was a defensive strategy, something the Viridians had not used in 1,000 years. On Earth, Commander Subin worked day and night in the intelligence division. She had teams dedicated to breaking Viridian communications, and after weeks of effort, they finally succeeded. The encryption was complex, but human computers powered by quantum processors were able to crack it. The information they discovered was invaluable. Subin learned about the reinforcements coming. She learned about Thralix's orders to hold defensive positions. Most importantly, she learned about the locations of every major Viridian military installation within 50 light years. She forwarded this information to Admiral Taemin immediately. The Admiral studied the intelligence reports and made a decision that would determine the course of the war. Instead of pressing the attack on the Viridian forces in human space, he would strike at their home territory. Captain Dae-sung would lead a massive raid on the Viridian shipyards, where the reinforcements were being prepared. Dae-sung selected 200 ships for the mission, the largest human force ever assembled for a single operation. They would jump deep into enemy territory, destroy the shipyards, and escape before the Viridians could respond. It was incredibly risky. If they failed, humanity would lose a quarter of its remaining military strength. But if they succeeded, they would cripple the Viridian war machine for months. Dr. Hyejin prepared the stellar resonance weapon for deployment. She had run every simulation, checked every calculation. The weapon would work, but she still felt uneasy about using it. The technology manipulated the fundamental structure of space itself. There were too many unknowns, too many possibilities for something to go wrong. Admiral Taemin visited her at the Prometheus station. "Are you ready?" Hyejin looked at the weapon, a device no larger than a shuttle but containing enough power to affect an entire star system. "Ready? No, but we are out of time. The Viridians will not stop. We need every advantage we can get." The Admiral placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then we use it. But only when we have no other choice." On New Busan, the battle had turned into a siege. Lieutenant Jinho's forces had driven the Viridians back to their landing zones, but they could not push them off the planet entirely. The aliens had brought in heavy armor and artillery, turning their position into a fortress. Every human attack resulted in heavy casualties. Jinho walked through the field hospital, looking at the wounded soldiers. Young men and women who had signed up to defend their homes now lying on medical beds with injuries that would take months to heal. A medic named Jae-hyun moved between the patients, offering words of comfort and working tirelessly to save lives. "Doctor, how are we doing?" Jinho asked quietly. Jae-hyun looked exhausted but managed a smile. "We are holding. These people are fighters. They refuse to give up, just like you." A young soldier, barely 20 years old, called out from his bed. "Lieutenant Jinho, did we win?" Jinho walked over and knelt beside the bed. The soldier, whose name was Minseok, had lost his left arm in an explosion, but was somehow still smiling. "Not yet, soldier, but we are getting closer." Minseok grabbed Jinho's hand with surprising strength. "Then I want to go back. I can still fight. You need to heal first." "With respect, sir, we all need to heal, but we will do that after we win. Let me back in the fight." Jinho looked at Jae-hyun, who shook his head, but he saw the determination in Minseok's eyes. This young man represented everything that made humanity dangerous. Not their technology or their weapons, but their absolute refusal to quit. Captain Dae-sung's raid force jumped into the Viridian home system and found themselves facing the largest shipyard complex in the Dominion. Thousands of ships in various stages of construction floated in orbital docks. The reinforcement fleet was nearly ready to launch, massive vessels bristling with weapons. All ships target the construction docks. We destroy the infrastructure, not just the ships. Make them start from scratch. The human fleet split into attack groups and struck the shipyards from multiple directions. The Viridians had not expected an attack this deep in their territory. Their defense forces scrambled to respond, but the human ships were already among the construction docks, firing quantum torpedoes at the support structures. Explosions rippled across the shipyard complex. Docks collapsed. Unfinished ships broke apart. The reinforcement fleet, which had been days from completion, became twisted metal and debris. Daesung's ships fought through the growing Viridian response, inflicting maximum damage before retreating. But the Viridians managed to corner one human destroyer. The ship's faster-than-light drive was damaged, and it could not escape. The captain prepared to self-destruct rather than be captured. Then from across the formation, a small patrol ship accelerated toward them. Private Minsiak had convinced his commanders to let him return to duty. He was piloting a scout vessel, meant to observe the battle from a safe distance. But when he saw the destroyer in trouble, he did not hesitate. He rammed his ship into the Viridian cruiser that was about to destroy the destroyer, buying them time to repair their drive. The scout ship exploded, but the destroyer escaped. Minsiak's sacrifice saved 200 lives. The raid was a devastating success. The Viridian reinforcement fleet was destroyed, and the shipyards would take years to rebuild. But humanity mourned the losses. Every name was read at memorial services. Every sacrifice was remembered. Commander Thralix received word of the shipyard's destruction and realized her position was hopeless. Without reinforcements, she could not hold the captured human colonies. Her fleet was exhausted and demoralized. For the first time in Viridian history, a military commander considered surrendering. But before she could make that decision, a new threat emerged. The humans were preparing to push into Viridian space itself. Admiral Taemin had decided that the best defense was offense. If the Viridians wanted war, humanity would bring the war to their doorstep. Dr. He Jin loaded the stellar resonance weapon onto a specially modified ship. The plan was simple but terrifying. They would jump to the edge of the Viridian fleet's position and activate the weapon. The subspace shockwave would disable every ship within 5 light years, leaving them helpless. The weapon activated and space itself screamed. A wave of energy rippled out in all directions, invisible to the naked eye but devastating to any electronic system it touched. Viridian ships went dark. Their engines failed. Their weapons powered down. Their life support systems struggled to maintain atmosphere. In 3 seconds, the stellar resonance weapon had disabled over 1,500 enemy vessels. The human fleet moved in immediately, not to destroy the helpless ships but to offer terms, surrender or die. The Viridian commanders sitting in ships that could not move or fight had no choice. One by one they accepted the terms. Thralix watched from her command ship as her entire fleet surrendered. She had started this campaign with 3,000 vessels and the confidence that came from 3,000 years of conquest. Now she commanded barely 400 operational ships, and those were retreating as fast as they could. The Viridian High Council sent her a message. It was not what she expected. They were not sending more ships. They were not demanding she fight to the death. Instead, they were asking for peace negotiations. The humans had done the impossible. They had defeated the Viridian Dominion. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Viridians were asking for mercy. The first battle happened at the colony of New Jeju, a small mining world on the outer edge of human space. The Viridian fleet arrived with overwhelming force, 300 ships against the 20 human vessels defending the planet. The colonists watched from underground shelters as the sky filled with fire. The human commander sent a simple message to the Viridian fleet. "Turn back now. This is your last chance." The Viridians responded by opening fire. Their weapons tore through space, and within minutes 5 human ships were destroyed. The defenders seemed to panic, breaking formation and retreating toward the planet. The Viridian commander ordered his ships forward. Sensing an easy victory, that was exactly what Admiral Taemin had planned. As the Viridian ships moved into orbit around New Jeju, they suddenly found themselves surrounded. Human ships that had been hiding behind asteroids and moons appeared from all directions. But more importantly, The planet itself came alive with weapons. Defense platforms rose from beneath the surface, targeting systems locking onto the enemy fleet. Engineer Sang-woo had spent years building hidden defenses on every colony world. Now they activated all at once. The quantum disruption torpedoes launched first. The Viridians raised their shields, confident in technology that had protected them for centuries. The torpedoes passed through the shields as if they did not exist. 17 Viridian ships exploded in the first salvo, torn apart by weapons that existed in dimensions their sensors could not detect. Commander Thralix watched the battle reports with disbelief. 17 ships destroyed in seconds. The humans had weapons that could bypass their shields. She ordered the fleet to adjust tactics, but the humans were already moving. Pilot Yu Jin led Ghost Squadron into the chaos. Her fighter was small and fast, equipped with the new AI combat network. The moment she engaged the system, time seemed to slow down. The AI showed her exactly where enemy ships would be 3 seconds from now, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. It was like fighting with the ability to see the future. Her squadron tore through the Viridian fighter screen like they were standing still. Every shot hit its target. Every maneuver put them exactly where they needed to be. The Viridians had never faced an enemy that could predict their movements. Their carefully trained pilots found themselves outmatched by humans who seemed to know what they would do before they did it. On the ground, Lieutenant Jin Ho prepared his forces for the inevitable Viridian landing. New Busan was one of humanity's largest colonies, home to over 5 million people. It also had some of the best defensive terrain in human space. Mountains and valleys that would force any invasion force into narrow passages where superior numbers meant nothing. The Viridian dropships came down like rain, carrying thousands of soldiers. They were professional warriors bred for conquest. They expected the humans to fight like the other species they had conquered. Stand in formation, use conventional tactics, and eventually break under superior force. Jinho's forces did none of those things. They fought like humans had always fought when defending their homes. They used ambush and guerrilla warfare. They rigged explosives in buildings and collapsed entire streets on advancing enemy units. They sniped from positions the Viridians could not reach and melted away before reinforcements arrived. The Viridians were confused. Their training had prepared them for conventional warfare, not for an enemy that refused to fight fair. They controlled the landing zones but could not advance into the cities. Every street was a death trap. Every building could hide a dozen human soldiers. In space, the battle turned into a bloodbath. Dr. Hai Jin watched from the Prometheus station as her weapons proved their worth. The quantum torpedoes were devastating, but they required time to charge between shots. The AI combat network gave human forces an edge, but it could not overcome the massive numerical superiority of the Viridian fleet. The battle for New Jeju lasted 3 days. In the end, the Viridians claimed the orbital space, but at a terrible cost. They had lost over 100 ships. The human defenders had been destroyed, but they had taken 5 enemy vessels for every one they lost. Across the Viridian fleet, commanders reported the same thing. The humans fought with a ferocity they had never encountered. More concerning were the reports from the ground forces. The humans simply would not surrender. Even when surrounded and outnumbered, they fought to the last person. Viridian casualties on the ground were mounting faster than they could reinforce. But the Viridians had 3,000 ships and billions of soldiers. They could afford losses. They pressed forward, attacking the next colony and the next. Each battle followed the same pattern. The humans seemed to retreat, luring the Viridians into traps. Hidden weapons appeared from nowhere. The defenders fought with tactics that defied conventional military doctrine. Captain Dae-sung and his stealth fleet struck behind enemy lines. They had located a massive Viridian supply depot and calculated that destroying it would cripple the invasion for weeks. The depot was protected by defense platforms and patrol ships, but Dae-sung had a plan that was either brilliant or insane. His ships dropped out of stealth mode right in the middle of the depot. Before the surprised Viridians could react, Dae-sung's team had planted explosive charges on every fuel tanker and ammunition ship in the facility. Then they jumped back into faster-than-light speed, escaping seconds before the depot exploded. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. Millions of tons of fuel and ammunition detonated in a chain reaction that destroyed everything within 1,000 kilometers. The Viridian invasion suddenly found itself without supplies. Ships that needed fuel were forced to withdraw. Ground forces that needed ammunition had to ration their remaining stockpiles. Thralix realized she had made a terrible mistake. The humans were not fighting like a young species. They were fighting like cornered animals, with a desperation and creativity that came from knowing they had no choice but to win. Every battle cost her more ships than she had anticipated. Every victory was hollow because the humans made her pay for every meter of space. 2 weeks into the invasion, the Viridian fleet had penetrated deep into human territory. They had captured several outer colonies and were advancing toward the more populated systems. But they had lost over 800 ships, more than a quarter of their invasion force. The humans had lost more in absolute numbers, but they were trading their losses at a rate that should have been impossible. Admiral Taemin watched the strategic map and allowed himself a small smile. Everything was going according to plan. The Viridians thought they were winning. They thought the human forces were retreating in disarray. They had no idea that every retreat was calculated. Every defensive position was designed to funnel them exactly where he wanted them. The Viridian fleet was now spread across 10 star systems. Their supply lines stretched thin, their forces divided. They had overextended themselves chasing what they thought were easy victories. And now Admiral Taemin was ready to spring his trap. He activated his communications console and sent a single word to all human forces. Counterattack. Across human space, forces that had been retreating suddenly turned and fought. Ships that had been fleeing powered up their weapons and engaged. Ground forces that had been evacuating civilians stopped running and started hunting. The Viridians found themselves ambushed in a dozen different systems simultaneously. Dr. He-Jin activated the quantum disruption fields at full power. Space itself seemed to ripple with energy. Every Viridian shield in range flickered and failed. Their ships were suddenly naked and vulnerable. Human forces, coordinated by the AI combat network, struck with perfect precision. On New Busan, Lieutenant Jin Ho received the signal and went on the offensive. His forces emerged from hiding and hit the Viridian occupation forces from every direction. The aliens had been trying to secure the cities for 2 weeks and were exhausted from constant guerrilla attacks. Now they faced a coordinated assault that drove them back toward their landing zones. Pilot Yujin led her squadron in a massive attack on the Viridian flagship. The Endless Night was the largest ship in their fleet, covered in weapons and armor that had survived 1,000 battles. Yujin's AI network calculated the attack pattern with impossible precision. 12 fighters, each carrying a single quantum torpedo, each programmed to hit at exactly the same moment. The torpedoes struck the Endless Night's command tower simultaneously. The shields could not stop them. The armor could not protect against weapons that existed in 17 dimensions. The command tower exploded, and with it the coordination of the entire Viridian fleet. Commander Thralix survived because she was not on the bridge at the moment of impact. She crawled through the wreckage and made her way to an escape pod, her mind refusing to accept what had happened. The humans had destroyed her flagship. The humans had outsmarted her. The young species that should have been easy prey had become a nightmare. The Viridian flagship was called the Endless Night, and it lived up to its name. Ambassador Jiwoo walked through corridors that seemed to swallow light itself. The walls were covered in symbols from 47 different species, trophies from the Dominion's conquests. Each one was a reminder of civilizations that had fallen before the Reptilian Empire. Thralix waited for her in a chamber decorated with weapons and armor from defeated enemies. The Viridian commander gestured to a chair with clawed hands that could easily crush bone. "Sit, human. Let me show you something." Jiwoo remained standing. Thralix's eyes narrowed, but she activated a holographic display. Images flickered to life, showing battles across the centuries. Jiwoo watched as species after species fell before the Viridian war machine. Some fought bravely, some surrendered immediately. None survived as free peoples. "The Korthan fought us for 10 years, Thralix said, pointing to an image of insectoid creatures. They were warriors bred for combat from birth. We exterminated them in a single month once we grew tired of the sport." Another image appeared showing beings made of crystalline structures. The Luminary had technology that could manipulate gravity itself. They created black holes to use as weapons. We adapted and destroyed their sun. Image after image, species after species. Jiwoo forced herself to watch every moment. She needed to understand what humanity faced. Finally, Thralix turned off the display. "Your species is young. You have fought only among yourselves. You know nothing of true galactic war. Surrender now, and some of you may live as servants. Fight, and we will erase you from existence. Jiwoo met the alien's gaze without flinching. You have shown me your past victories. Let me tell you about humanity's past. We have faced extinction events. Ice ages, plagues, asteroids, wars that killed millions. Every time we survived. Every time we grew stronger. You see us as young and weak. You are about to learn the difference between age and wisdom, between size and strength. She placed a data chip on the table between them. This contains humanity's formal response. We will not evacuate our colonies. We will not surrender our freedom. Any attack on human territory will be considered an act of war, and we will respond with total commitment. This is your only warning. Leave now, or face consequences you cannot imagine. Thralix picked up the data chip with 2 claws and crushed it to powder. Your warning is noted and ignored. When the deadline expires, the Viridian Dominion will sweep through your territory like a flood. Your worlds will burn. Your people will beg for the mercy of slavery. Jiwoo turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. We gave you a chance. Remember that. Back on Earth, Engineer Sang-woo had not slept in 3 days. He stood in the control center for Earth's planetary defense network, surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of weapons satellites, shield generators, and combat drones. The system had been built over decades, designed to protect against asteroids and the occasional pirate attack. Now he was upgrading it to face an empire that had conquered half the galaxy. His team worked frantically, installing new quantum processors, linking the defense grid to the AI combat network that Dr. Haijin had developed. Every satellite was being upgraded with new weapons. Every shield generator was being boosted to maximum power. The entire solar system was being transformed into a fortress. Sir, we need more time, one of his assistants said, looking at the calculations. The integration is only 60% complete. If they attack now, the system might not hold. Sang-woo rubbed his tired eyes. Then we work faster. Failure is not an option. Earth must be protected. On the colony world of New Busan, Colonel Bo Young was overseeing the evacuation of civilians to underground shelters. She had fought in the corporate wars 20 years ago, back when humanity's greatest enemies were other humans. She knew combat. She knew tactics. But the reports about the Viridians terrified her. A young mother approached her holding a child who could not have been more than 5 years old. Colonel, is it true? Are we really going to fight them? Bo Young knelt down so she was eye level with the child. She forced a smile. Yes, we are going to fight, and we are going to win. Do you know why? Because you are here. Because this is your home, and humans protect their homes. The mother's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. As Bo Young watched them descend into the shelter, she wondered if she had just lied to that child. Could humanity really win, or was she sending these people to their deaths? In the depths of space, Captain Dae-sung and his small fleet of stealth ships crossed into Viridian territory. They moved silently, their advanced cloaking technology hiding them from enemy sensors. Dae-sung had handpicked his crew for this mission. Every person on these ships was a volunteer. Every person knew they might not come home. They discovered the truth about the Viridian invasion force, and it was worse than anyone had feared. Over 3,000 warships were gathering at the border. Each one was massive, covered in weapons that could crack planets. Supply ships stretched for millions of kilometers, carrying the equipment needed for a long campaign. This was not a raid. This was total war. Dae-sung recorded everything and sent encrypted messages back to Earth. Admiral Tae-min received the data and felt his blood run cold. Humanity's entire military had maybe 500 ships, and most of those were designed for patrol duties, not fleet combat. The numbers were impossible, but Tae-min had not survived 50 years of military service by accepting the impossible. He gathered his senior commanders in the war room and activated the files from Project Reckoning. What they saw made them understand. Humanity had been preparing for this. They had weapons the Viridians could not imagine. The question was whether it would be enough. Dr. Haijin arrived from the Prometheus station, bringing with her the prototype weapons. She stood before the assembled military leadership and explained what she had created. The quantum disruption torpedoes exist in 17 dimensions simultaneously. Conventional shields cannot stop them, because the shields only exist in 3 dimensions. The AI combat network can process tactical data faster than any biological brain. It can predict enemy movements by analyzing millions of variables in real time, and the stellar resonance weapon creates a subspace shockwave that can disable every electronic system within 5 light years. Admiral Taman studied the weapons with a mixture of awe and fear. What is the cost of using these? Hyjin's expression darkened. The torpedoes require enormous amounts of power. We can only make a limited number. The AI network might develop beyond our control if used too long. And the stellar resonance weapon could damage the fabric of space itself. Using it might create problems we cannot predict. But they will work? Against the Viridians? Yes, they will work. The 30-day deadline arrived. Across human space, families gathered together, wondering if this would be their last day of freedom. Soldiers checked their weapons and prepared for a fight that seemed impossible to win. Politicians gave speeches about courage and sacrifice, and humanity waited. The Viridian fleet crossed the border exactly at the moment the deadline expired. 3,000 ships moving in perfect formation, like a dark wave sweeping through space. Their sensors detected the human defense forces, and Thralics laughed. Only 500 ships stood against them. The humans were either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. On Earth, Admiral Taman watched the enemy fleet advance. Around him, his command staff waited for orders. The Admiral was calm, his hands steady as he activated the communication network that connected every human military unit across 12 star systems. All forces, this is Admiral Taman. The enemy has rejected our warning. They believe we are weak. They believe we will break. They are wrong. Today, humanity shows the galaxy what we are capable of. Today, we fight not just for survival, but for our right to exist as free people. All units execute Operation Defiance. The stars had never seemed so threatening until that morning. Captain Dae-sung stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, staring at the massive ship that had appeared without warning at the edge of human space. It was 3 times the size of his vessel, covered in dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The alien ship just floated there, silent and menacing. Dae-sung had been patrolling the outer colonies for 5 years. He had seen pirates, smugglers, and the occasional strange phenomenon. But nothing like this. His hands tightened on the command rail as his communications officer turned to him with wide eyes. "Captain, we're receiving a message. It's in perfect English." The view screen flickered to life. A face appeared that would haunt Dae-sung's dreams for years to come. The alien was reptilian with scales that shimmered between green and gold. Its eyes were vertical slits that seemed to look through him rather than at him. When it spoke, its voice was cold and precise. "Human vessel, you are trespassing in space claimed by the Viridian Dominion. Withdraw immediately." Dae-sung felt his stomach drop. The outer colonies had been human territory for 20 years. Thousands of families lived on these worlds. He stepped forward, keeping his voice steady. "This is Captain Dae-sung of the United Earthship Defiance. These systems belong to humanity. We have colonized and terraformed these worlds. They are ours by right of settlement." The alien's mouth curved into something that might have been a smile. It showed too many teeth. "Your claims are irrelevant. The Viridian Dominion has existed for 3,000 years. We have conquered and absorbed 47 species. You are simply the next. You have 30 of your Earth days to evacuate all colonies and retreat to your home system. If you refuse, we will remove you by force." Before Dae-sung could respond, his ship suddenly went dark. Every system failed at once. The lights, the engines, the life support, everything. For 3 terrifying seconds, the Defiance was nothing more than a dead hulk floating in space. Then, just as suddenly, everything came back online. The alien was still on the screen, that terrible smile still in place. "That was a demonstration. Your technology is primitive. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your shields cannot stop us. Comply, or be destroyed." The screen went black. Dae-sung immediately sent emergency messages to Earth. Within hours, similar encounters were reported from all 12 human star systems. The Viridians had appeared everywhere at once. The message was always the same: surrender or die. On Earth, in the Grand Council chamber overlooking the rebuilt city of Seoul, Ambassador Jiwoo stood before the assembled leaders of humanity. She was young for her position, only 35, but she had earned her place through brilliant negotiations with the mining corporations and the colony independence movements. Now she faced something far more dangerous. "We cannot surrender," she said, her voice clear and strong. "I have accessed historical records from other species. The Viridians have made this demand 47 times before. Every species that surrendered was enslaved. Their worlds were stripped of resources. Their people became servants of the Dominion. Counselor Kyung-ho, an older man with gray hair and tired eyes, shook his head. If we fight, we will lose. You saw what they did to the Defiance. They disabled our most advanced warship without firing a shot. We must think of our people. Perhaps slavery is better than extinction. Jiwoo's eyes flashed with anger. Is that what you want to tell the children on New Busan? That we sold them into chains because we were afraid? That humanity's spirit died not with a fight but with a whimper? The debate raged for hours. Some advocated immediate evacuation. Others wanted to try negotiation. A few, very few, spoke of war. As the sun set over Earth, the council remained deadlocked. In a secure bunker deep beneath the mountains of Switzerland, Admiral Tae-min stood before a sealed vault. He was 60 years old, scarred from a dozen conflicts, and he had been waiting for this day. His hand shook slightly as he entered the access codes. The vault door hissed open, revealing a single data drive marked with a red phoenix project reckoning. The secret that humanity had kept for 30 years. Tae-min had been a young officer when the project began. Earth had just achieved faster-than-light travel. The scientists and military leaders of the time asked themselves a simple question. What if we meet something hostile? What if we find an enemy we cannot defeat with conventional means? So they started Project Reckoning. In secret research stations scattered across the solar system, humanity's best minds had worked to create weapons that could kill gods. Technology that would make any enemy think twice before threatening Earth. For 3 decades, they had prepared for a war they hoped would never come. Now that war was here. Dr. Hyojin stood in the Prometheus research station, orbiting Jupiter's moon Europa. She was looking at 3 devices that could change the course of history. The quantum disruption torpedoes could tear through any shield by existing in multiple dimensions at once. The AI combat network could predict enemy movements by processing billions of combat scenarios per second. And the stellar resonance weapon, her masterpiece, could create a shockwave through subspace itself. She had spent 15 years developing these weapons. She had sacrificed friendships, relationships, and a normal life. All for this moment. Her hand rested on the control panel, and she wondered if humanity was ready to use such terrible power. Back on the Defiance, Captain Daesung received new orders. He was to take his ship and a small fleet of stealth vessels behind enemy lines. They would gather intelligence, sabotage supply lines, and prepare for the coming war. It was a suicide mission. Everyone knew it. But when he asked for volunteers, every single member of his crew stepped forward. As the 30-day deadline approached, Ambassador Jiwoo was given the task of delivering humanity's response. She traveled to a neutral space station at the edge of the system. The Viridian commander, Thralix, was waiting for her. The alien sat on a throne made of black metal, surrounded by guards carrying weapons that hummed with deadly energy. Jiwoo walked forward without fear. She stood before the alien conqueror and spoke words that would echo across the galaxy. Humanity rejects your demands. We will not abandon our homes. We will not surrender our freedom. This is your warning. Leave our space now or face the consequences. Thralix laughed. It was a horrible sound, like stones grinding together. Your warning? We have ended civilizations older than yours. We have burned worlds to ash. What can you possibly do to threaten us? Jiwoo smiled. It was not a friendly smile. You are about to find out.